Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm delighted to see all of you here celebrating Toni Mirosevich's story collection, Spell Heaven. Yeah, let's give it up for Toni. So much. We're joined also by the fabulous Frances Phillips. Let's make a little noise for Frances. Personally, excuse me. Okay, this is personally a very exciting evening for me because I am a graduate of SF State's MFA program, and I happen to have both of these wonderful writers as my instructors. And so I know I'm not alone in the deep appreciation that I have for both of them as engaging and dedicated educators that gave me and many others a place to develop our skills and give time to our art and our craft. And so to be able to celebrate the work of one of them with both of them is very special. So thank you for letting me be a part of it. So I will say, please do just a little bit of business and then we'll get to the fun part. Please do keep your masks on between sips of beverages. If you have a beverage, we want to give our authors the grace to be able to move forward without theirs while they're on the microphone, and we're just trying to move forward as safely as we can during this continuing pandemic. So thank you for being cool about it. We appreciate it. Very brief business. We have an upcoming event on Friday, this coming Friday, May 27th at 7 p.m. O.B. Kaufman is going to be joining us, who is a naturalist, and you might know him as the author and illustrator of the California Field Atlas. He does really beautiful work. And if you love California, as I anticipate some of you might be interested in California and its natural landscape, he has done a lot to preserve it and done a lot to preserve it in book form for us. And this is on the coasts of California. So if you're interested in, I don't know, coastal seaside towns, you might be interested in that book as well. That's this coming Friday, May 27th at 7 p.m. All of our events are free unless stated otherwise. I would encourage you to take a look at our event calendar. I'm a little biased, but it's pretty wonderful. And I would encourage you to please buy books while you're here. Please do buy books from us if you can. I can think of at least one book that you might want to purchase this evening if you haven't already. And I do say it in jest. I'm always appreciative of anything that folks are able to contribute. And I know that it's hard and we're not always able to buy a book every time we walk into a bookstore as much as we would like to. But when you do support a bookstore such as ours, you also support the authors who put so much work into writing their books, and then you get to have a book. So that's another benefit too. So please consider buying a book or any book if you can. Thank you. So before we move forward, I want to honor that today is a difficult day to be living in this country, among many difficult days to be living in this country. And I know there are many places that you could be right now. And I so appreciate that you are here coming out and joining us today. It's really easy to question the frivolity of putting together literary events in the face of violence, in the face of another avoidable national tragedy. And it's something that I have had to question a lot over the past couple of years, especially. And I have had to preface a lot of readings like this. And I am sorry that I've had to do that for all of us. But I say this because I really do believe at my core that art and literature are really anything but frivolous, and that community like this is anything but frivolous. And so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to move forward as best as we can with celebrating Toni's wonderful book, and we're going to move forward being together. And I just appreciate you all being here with us. So thank you. I have very brief bios for the two wonderful people that are joining us, and then I'm going to let them take over. First, Frances Phillips has recently retired after a long tenure as program director for arts at the Walter and Elise Haas Fund. Phillips was a creative writing instructor at San Francisco State for many years and has published 3 small press books of poetry with Hanging Loose and Kelsey Street Press. Please do welcome Frances Phillips. And last but most certainly not least, Toni Mirosevich was raised in a Croatian-American fishing family in Everett, Washington. She is the author of a book of nonfiction stories, Pink Harvest, winner of the First Series Award for Creative Nonfiction, and 5 books of poetry. A professor of creative writing at San Francisco State for many years, she currently resides with her wife and dogs, that's not in here, but with her wife and dogs, in Pacifica, California. And her latest book, Spell Heaven, is the reason we are here tonight. Please join me in welcoming Toni Mirosevich.
Thank you, Car. That was good. I really appreciate that. How you've introduced the evening. I was also thinking there was years ago at San Francisco State, I was teaching a poetry workshop up in the Humanities Building, the 5th floor. And all of a sudden there were all of these helicopters outside of the windows. And we couldn't figure out why. But it was the start of the Iraq War. And there was a big demonstration. And to not mention, to just carry on, and to do our poems, and to not mention the menace that was outside and what was happening in that moment would just not have been the good thing to do. So thank you for referencing the hard times of this last 24 hours, or how long it's been, the last number of years. I'm hoping, though, tonight, as you said, it's a great thing to come together. I love being here with Frances Phillips, who's a friend of mine. You're a friend of mine.
I am, I'm lucky.
And to also see so many of you that I haven't seen some of you for a while. Some of you I saw yesterday at the beach, so I'm looking straight at you, Flavie. And David and Dorothy, I was at your house recently. And Caitlin, I saw you in classes 20 years ago. So anyhow, it's wonderful to be here with you. And so I'm going to start off with a little reading from the book, a little bit of it. If you haven't heard about this book, it's basically about a university professor type who gets a little doesn't feel quite comfortable in academia. She feels comfortable in the classroom because she can do whatever the F she wants to do there. But she's looking for a community of people that remind her a little bit of the past and growing up around very big hearted, larger than life characters down by the sea. And so she and her wife moved to a seacoast town that looks very, very much like a local seacoast town that some of you may know. And there she finds a number of people who are extraordinary. And how she starts out almost every single day is how this goes. When you're lost and looking for a sign, an omen, a clue, when the wishbone pull doesn't yield the lucky stem, when you no longer believe in heaven or hell, past lives or future, yet still hope for a hint, some shred of evidence, a piece of shining raiment, a lucky card that blows your way, offering something, a way forward, an escape plan. When you're feeling down due to a recent slight or a spate of misfortune, or the knowledge that melancholy has seeped into your bones, never coming in like gangbusters, but sneaking around the edges of the frame, a grayness that blankets the perimeter of the skin, then moves towards the center, the heart, the lungs, journeys to the center of your earth, enters and takes up residence, And after that, you're no longer looking up and out at the horizon to that flat line you use to trace forward progress, a line as sharp as a ruler's edge, a line as an invitation. Then it's down to the sea for a walk, to the sea, the cure-all, end all. So what I'm going to, so that's how this narrator starts every day. And then she meets these people. And I'm going to read you the start of the story about one of the people that she meets. The title of the story is called The Morning News. He's there every morning inside the Chat and Chew Cafe on the pier, in the same spot, on the same stool, holding his paper cup of coffee, and right outside that same cafe every afternoon, cemented to a concrete bench near the beach, with a 16-ounce can of malt liquor in a paper sack. If you ask what Billy's up to, he'll say he's hydrating again. Drink lots of fluids. That's what the doctor says, he says. Good for your skin. It keeps it moist, he says. When he smiles, lines crisscross his face like tooled leather. Every day he's there as regular as clockwork, as right as rain, as at the ready as any cliche that comes to mind when you can't come up with a fresh thought after one too many, after two. His blue eyes are the color of the sea, his skin the color of rust. He's as tan as a construction worker, but what he's constructing in his mind is anyone's guess. He seems not of this time, out of time, like the men who once made up the fishing crews on my father's boat, who rolled out of bed in the morning, stumbled to the john in clothes they never took off, clothes they'd worn wherever they traveled in their dreams, the Ivory Coast, Tahiti. Billy is up before the sun rises too. I get up early, he says. Got to listen to the morning news, he says. We have a dog, he says. Who is we? Does he live under the freeway, in a halfway house, in a home with the family gathered around the breakfast table? Hey, he says, did you hear that one about the baby that got stuck in a sewer pipe? I heard it on the radio. Before it's light out, he puts on his jacket, his baseball cap, slings a black hefty bag over his shoulder because who knows what he'll find. Last week it was a dog leash someone left in the sand. Want to buy it for $1, he says. I give him 4 quarters, toss those coins in his tip jar. He's at the Chat and Chew by 7 or maybe earlier. My dog sees him in the window sitting at the counter, looking out at the sea, draining his coffee cup, wondering what, and the dog starts to pull on her new leash, her hind legs digging in. Through the window, he sees us coming. Soon he'll open the cafe door as a car door opens, as a front door opens, and there, standing on the porch, a grinning salesman saying, howdy, man, this is your lucky day. Billy opens the cafe door, tosses a milk bone high up in the air, perfect dark. My dog catches the treat before it hits the ground. Billy smiles and barks at us, roof, 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 and she and I bark back. Later, he'll be at his bench, his spot. It's where he hangs. If the sun comes up, he'll bare his chest, sunken chest, leather chest, and the paper bag will be there getting lighter by the hour. 16 ounces become 12, become none, and his heart gets lighter as he drains that sea. His heart gets so light, it might just float away. He'll be here all day. You can count on it. He's dependable. He'll be here and long gone by 10, more gone by noon, like all the old fishermen, gone now. When he makes the long trek home, when he makes dinner's front door, will someone be there waiting to ask how his day went? When he opens the door, will a dog be there to greet him? Will we find out if the baby in the sewer pipe was saved? He is lucky, not the kind of luck that lands you in a Tesla, in a fancy house with a fancy wife, kids in private school, an Italian coffee maker on a 6-burner stove. There's big luck, being born with your choice of which silver spoon you want your nanny to use, and there's small luck, the kind everyone gets a shot at, the buy a ticket kind, the place a bet kind of luck. He has ticket luck, lottery luck. How many times has he told me he's won 20 or 100 or 10 on quick picks, on scratchers, chicken scratch, he says. Someday I'm gonna win the mega millions. Yesterday, he was leaning over the pier outside the Chat and Chew having a smoke, wearing a 49ers sweatshirt that hung off his shoulders, jeans hanging off his hips. He's getting thinner than he looked last week. I never see him eat. That's why I'm so skinny, he once said to me. I'm on a liquid diet. When he saw me walk up, he laughed. I knew what was coming. Okay, I said, how much this week? $50, he said, confident, smiling. It's a given he'd win. He knows how to pick 'em, lucky dog. Where'd you buy it, I ask, as if this will give me an edge. He just grins. What I want to ask is the question the morning news crew anchors pose to anyone lucky enough to reach 100. Here you go, bud. What's your secret? A reporter always asks a news centenarian. As if what works for Ida in Illinois or Joseph in New York will work for you and me. A shot of scotch at 5 every day, a man in South Carolina says. Letting go of petty worries, offers a woman in Seattle. Just lucky, I guess, from a man in Albuquerque. Bought it at the service station over on Dolphin Street, Billy finally says. How many tickets did he buy to get that one lucky pick? Where does he get the cash? Pouring lead into the mold for the fishing weights at the bait shop, mopping the floors at the Arctic, the local dive bar, sweeping up outside the Chat and Chew. The owner lets him clean the windows of the cafe, lets him sweep the path. For that, he gets coffee, a muffin, maybe enough to pay for a beer for 16 ounces, a can in a bag, kick the can, and enough for a few tickets. Odd jobs. That's what people would say. But what's so odd about his kind of work? Isn't it odder yet to screw people over 10 ways to Sunday as a hedge fund manager? Billy hasn't climbed that ladder. He hasn't risen in this world. He hasn't moved on up. He's moved on over. Most days he's here at the bench and has saved me a spot. Come on and sit down. Here, have a taste, he says. Here, have a smoke. What about letting me buy one of those quick picks from you? I asked, eyeing a couple of tickets peeking out of his shirt pocket. Damn, if I'm going to give you one of those, you've got to make your own luck. The sun dries him out as he liquors up. He worships at the Arctic when he gets a chance, where the crabbers congregate, where the beer sloshes out of the glasses over the counter onto the floor. Who's buying the next round? Someone yells as coins spill out of a drunk's pocket. Billy picks those up too. I find things, he says, all the time. Last week, a dog leash. This week, a rhinestone bracelet missing some stones. Hey, you need a bracelet? He stares back down at his empty beer bottle, then looks at me pleadingly. Can I help him with what he's found? Can he help me with what I've lost? Something not as tangible as a bracelet, a leash, a can of bud, something key, what D.H. Lawrence called the quick. If I were to give voice to this lostness, this is how it might come out. I've lost the thread, the quick, the spark, the easy breath at midnight's dark. I've lost the way, the path, the road. I've lost the field and seed I sowed. I've lost a rudder straight and true. I've lost myself and I've lost you. I've lost why I was set down here, live wire, flat tire, strange one, queer. I've lost a thought to save the day. I've lost my line, my swing, my sway, where to look for what I've lost, in what cold corner, wet hot pot, in which stray pocket of jumble mind, where's a through line I can find, what voice or soul or breath or ease, where can I find what I now need?
I see my primary role in this conversation is to ask Toni questions, but I wanted to begin with a little bit of my own, a brief bit of my own fondness for her work. And in thinking about what Carr said at the beginning of acknowledging how tragic this day is, I love Toni's, the narrator's, curiosity about people and caring about the people she encounters, which seems to me an antidote to a lot of the cruelty we find around us. And I'm guessing, and in fact, because I know some of you, that there are a number of writers in this room, and in recommending this particular book to you, I love books that make me want to write, and Spell Heaven makes me want to write. It's funny, its observations are really keen. It makes me see things that I haven't quite seen before. And it's
by
really
the way,
serious.
that's how Frances's writing is too, just to let you know, okay? I'm sorry, she just described how her writing has that effect, just to let you know. Sorry to break in.
Thank
Okay,
you.
okay.
Right. And then the other thing that I love about it is watching how Toni constructs sentences. They build in a way that's really surprising and beautiful. So you can read the book quickly, and then you come to these gems that I think of as, there's a story in which there are these Japanese glass floats that pull fishing nets up from deep in the sea. And that's sort of the central metaphor and image in the story. And I think of that as feeling like the writing, that it keeps bobbing up in its brightness and shadows and its loveliness. But now I'm going to ask you a question, which is my real job here. And what you read just leads right into my question, which is, this book refers to chance, to luck, to fortune, and I'm just curious about, in your life as a writer and also in how you've structured these stories, how much of an arc of it is around luck and fortune.
That's great.
And I'm going to get the oblique strategies cards out of my purse, just in case we need to turn to them. So you go.
You know, Frances was talking to me about this with luck and chance, and I think I believe in it. I think I believe in luck and chance and things happening. I don't know if I believe that things happen for a reason or if things are meant to be, but I do know that weird things happen because of chance. So an example being is that, and this is more personal than the book, is that you know, I did a lot of physical labor, and then I ended up with a chronic illness. And I went to a college to get a quick BA, and I met this woman named Ani Monder. And Ani Monder, I wrote about being ill, and she said, send that to San Francisco State, send that to the graduate department. And I had been a truck driver right before that. What am I going to be doing there? Through that chance encounter of her saying that, of her suggesting that, and then the chance of throwing that out and sending it to San Francisco State, and someone picking it up and say, hey, that's okay, let's let her in. Let's let her in. And then to go from there, and then to get a lecturer job, and then to kind of go on. It's like it's a twist of fate. It's like, you know, that person says that one thing. So chances, it comes and it changes the entire trajectory of what you imagine is going to happen. And so that is pretty cool. As growing up in a fishing family, I think that, you know, my father had a boat. They would go to Alaska and fish the Bering Sea. I think you always prepared, you know, you got the nets, you read the fathometer, the maps and everything, but there was always this sense of luck or chance that you'd get a good haul, or down at the, I could go on about this, you know, or down at the beach, like, you know, it's a chance encounter with Billy. If you say hello, and then you go a little further, and then you sit down on the bench, and then you learn the bullshit, well, that's part chance too. Is it going to go further? Are you going to have a relationship? Is it going to carry on? Is that getting anywhere near?
Yeah.
And I read my horoscope every morning, and I pick an oblique strategy every day. So I guess that's chance too. Okay.
Right. I told Toni that I would tell them what the oblique strategy. I realize this goes back to old work of yours, but just in case somebody isn't aware, I did bring my own deck.
So how do you start your day? So, we all have a little ritual. Maybe we all don't have a little ritual, but the oblique strategies, Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt came up with this over 100 strategies, oblique strategies for any creative dilemma you would have. So you shuffle the cards and then you pick one and then you just apply it. And I do this every morning. I'm not going to be able to do this with a thing in my hand, but look at so let's just pick one. The most important thing is the thing most easily forgotten. Yeah. I mean, so I guess it's chance with a little push or luck with a little push. I mean, you have your eye out for the possibility that something will cross your trajectory of thought or cross your trajectory in terms of the path you're walking. It's a chance. It's unexpected. And then you go from there, right? Is that something like that?
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Yeah,
How do you start your day,
absolutely.
Frances? Tell me.
Mine, I feel as if mine's really embarrassing. I go to the, well, at the moment I've been playing a lot of online solitaire because I retired. But my creative practice has to do with like opening the page of the Chronicle. It has that puzzle called the jumble. And if I instantly, kind of from a distance, out of the corner of my eye, see the solution to the first two words, I'm going to have a good day. I was like, I can't sit down and spend time writing out the letters and working it out. I've just got to kind of glance at it.
How often does that happen? That you get the good day?
Pretty often. Yeah.
That's why you keep doing
Fairly
it.
often. I have good days. I'm lucky. I'm very fortunate. And then often I will use one of those words as a prompt to then start a piece of writing. Because I just need some sort of cue. Hook,
There you go.
whatever.
There you go. Wonderful.
Okay. This may be obvious, but this book has it struck me after I sat with the book for a while that it's about culture, that it's about a culture of this fishing life. It's a little nostalgic in a way. It's kind of a fishing life from the past. And then there are these other cultures that the narrator has been part of, driving a truck, working in a produce market, and teaching in an academic environment. And I feel as if on one hand, it's easy to say, oh, the narrator is just in love with this fishing culture. But in fact, entering it is not so easy. And I'm curious about how do you build the trust? How do you keep at it? How do you find yourself there? And also, when do you feel a sense of belonging?
That's nice. I love that, when you feel a sense of belonging. Part of it, I'm going to say this about my wife. She and I moved to a seacoast town near here, and about 30 years ago, we moved to a neighborhood that was not the most gay-friendly neighborhood in the world. It's quite possible it wasn't. And I think they thought, who are those two ladies on the corner? And so she started, and the guy across the street he shot a service station attendant and went to San Quentin. It was a rough neighborhood. And so my wife starts, and this is a story in the book, she starts to make holiday bread. And so she starts to make this holiday bread, and around the holidays, she goes and she brings it to every house. And suddenly, I mean, these are scary houses. One guy has a bullet constrictor around his head. That's how he answers the door. One guy, when he sees us walk by, takes out an appendage and pees at the street. I mean, it wasn't welcoming. The neighborhood had a culture. But she keeps bringing the bread. What is with her? Amazing. She's watching from home. Hi, honey. So, and keeps bringing this bread and brings it to all of the neighbors. And then slowly, over time, we get a knock on the door. And there's someone, and someone has gone down to Safeway and they picked up some little piece of something and they brought it to the door. Some guy brings us a bottle of wine. Somebody, comes to the door and says, "Here, you dropped your wallet on the street. Do you need this?" I mean, so what I'm saying about that particular culture was that it took that outward movement of, here, we aren't frightening. We're not scared of you. And down at the narrator, I think, goes down to the sea and she sees people that she has a lot of assumptions about. There's a guy who's drunk on a bench. There's a woman who looks like she's homeschooling her kids, but she looks like she's on meth. There's a guy who's the Crab King, who's a lovely guy who says hey to everybody. There's all these people. And she initially she feels drawn to them. She also has assumptions about them. And she has to get over her assumptions. And also, I guess I'm trying to figure out right now a metaphor for murderer's bread. Like what she has to go beyond her own fear and assumption about people. And that's what will bring her into that culture. She has to not just blow by and say, oh, well, you and I will have nothing in common. We will have nothing in common. I'm now a university professor. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm gonna warm up to my question about colloquial expressions because it's a fun part of the book. But I love very early in the first story, there's a riddle included, which is, what's the difference between a fairy tale and a sea story? And the answer is, one begins once upon a time, the other begins, this is no shit. But there are a lot of, I started tracking colloquial. I took a bunch of Post-its out of my book today.
Look
But
at
they
your
used to,
Post-its.
they used to be on.
Look at how many Post-its you have.
So here's but as fate would have it, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. Limp as, say it, a dish rag, let the world go by. And then in other places you pile them on. So there's one character, very sweet, older gentleman. We find his fly is down. He's forgotten to hoist the flag. His barn door is open. So they build on each other. He's a coat rack, a beanpole, a barber pole. And they're regular as clockwork, right as rain.
Oh my God, you found all of them.
I did not, this is a small selection. And we're all taught often by university professors of creative writing to avoid cliches, and you just celebrate them. And I'm curious about.
Listen, I used to teach an exercise. Who's in this class who was in that class where it was like death to cliches? Do you remember that? Okay, apparently not. It really went over well. No, I think, every cliche, I'm sorry, that's my mother talking. We all put our pants on two legs at a time. I said, well, what about the people who don't? I think part of it is also finding a language, a common language, okay? When I used to go home and chat with my mother, who went to the 7th grade, my father went to the 3rd grade, And if I started to use multisyllabic words, it was like, who are you? Who are you? So part of it is finding a language that so you pick those out and that's an echo for you too. You've heard them. You've heard them before, and so cliche. This is a funny thing. Cliches may have a function, and the function, though in creative writing classes, you're not supposed to use them, I know, but they may have a function of, oh, I've heard that. I've heard that. Oh, okay, then maybe we could chat. Does that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also think there's something about cliches change over decades and time.
Yes.
And so they kind of lend, they help to orient the reader to the generation of the character and the context of the character to a degree.
Yes. Like, okay, this is the audience participation part. Like, what's a cliche right now? Do you have one?
Now more than ever.
Dial it back.
Dial it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that for you.
Diana, you said that so well. Journey? Journey.
Everyone's on a journey.
Oh, everyone's. I thought you were talking about the group, and I'm way back there. Everybody's on the journey. Yeah. No, I think that's really true. It's kind of, it's
Kind of
it's
places
generational.
Characters in time. You were when I told Toni I was going to ask her about this, she said, well, what did your mother say to you? And I've been having a really hard time picking it out of my memory. The only thing I can remember is she would be at our house when I was an adult and I would be cooking and she'd say something about, well, I would do that, but you do it your way. In other words, I know better, but I'm not going to interfere.
Perfect. Good.
I didn't warn you that I was going to ask you about this,
Oh,
but
no.
but it's something we have in common.
Okay.
In the story you write, I'm thinking of quitting the classroom, but can't imagine what's beyond this room's horizon. You retired about 2 years ago. I retired 5 months ago. And I'm curious for anyone in the room who is thinking that that's coming up, advice you have, how you handled it, how you felt about giving up that place, that routine, that identity. I wish someone had helped me more. I just thought, oh, I'm going to sleep. It'll be great.
I think that there's two things about this. One is that there's the extraordinary good fortune to get to retire. Okay. I think my mother worked till she was 76 in the cafeteria in the hospital. My father died at 49. That's what it is fortunate if you get to retire. And when you do get to retire, and if you do, there's part of it has to do with identity, but I have to tell you that because the classroom ended up feeling, the classroom, not academia, felt so comfortable to me in a certain way that it felt like part of my life outside of the classroom was in the classroom, because I would usually tell stories from outside and bring them in. So I was just able to not be in the classroom and live the life that I was living. It wasn't such a separation. It was still work, and but there was something about now I could. I mean, really, it's just I just can't get over talking about how fortunate it is that you can get up and take a walk at the beach and meet people, and that you can like Shotzi does. She volunteers at Golden Gate Park, bringing up flowers out of the dirt. I mean, I don't think there's any I think it has to do with identity and how you crossed. I think I'm screwing up with this answer.
No problem.
I think that it's kind of like I don't know how one does it. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe one, I don't know how one does the shift. You had a big job. And I don't know how you make that transition. That's
It's the part that among other things, the thing that I've struggled with it to a degree is you think, oh, great, I can do whatever I want. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, but this is all about me. Why should it all, why am I, well, I'm not doing anything that's good for anybody else. Like, that's like, what purpose or meaning does that have? If
Well-
I'm just making myself a cup of tea.
I think that's a great thing to think about, because usually our jobs are in connection with other people, and they're in some way you're giving back and forth with other people. The great thing about teaching is that it really feels both ways, right? But in most jobs, there's that thing that's happening. And then to not be in that world where your meaning has come from the kind of, I don't want to use the word service, the kind of work have done with others, I get that. I understand that. I mean, and I have to tell you also, just as I've had to do some interviews and stuff for this book, it's kind of, when you're just talking about the self, it's really not fun. You could talk about the stories, and but if you're just talking about the self, it's kind of, it's a little icky.
I would add that those who really enjoy talking about the self all the time are kind of icky. But on the other end of this. So I'm just about to open it to the audience, but Toni knows there's a question that she asked me not to start with, but I will.
Yes, great.
And I have some others, but I'm going to. This book is identified as being a work of fiction, and there are some qualities about Seaview that will remind readers of the life of the person I'm sitting next to. And what's that gesture you make? Like, what does it mean? And the book, I've taught creative nonfiction. You've taught creative nonfiction. This is sold marketed as a work of fiction, and I feel as if it kind of wobbles across the line of being the verbatim story and the imagined into a suggestion of an event kind of story. I just wonder, do you feel that that's true? Do you feel, and how do you answer the people who are asking you about, well, isn't this you? This narrator person?
Can you wobble? Do you know the John Baptiste song? I'm just thinking wobble's such a great word. Love you too. As I have been saying for a while, my definition of genre is very, very fluid. Very, very, very fluid. So what I used to say in creative nonfiction when I taught that was that isn't the imagination fiction, but you're having that in your real life too. So there are a lot of similarities between this narrator and another person, but at the same time, I had to, as a writer, imagine into Billy's life, and imagine into Kite Man's life, and imagine into the life of Tommy Bench. These are some of the characters. So I can take something like a small event or a small encounter, like this woman in the book who was a real life character, but she says the phrase, I want to go where people are people. And then the fictional aspect, other than changing her name and changing some names in the book, starts to come in that I don't know her life. The narrator, it starts to like, how shall I say, bring about new parts of the story that aren't there at all. I had a friend, Patricia Powell, who, when she read part of these stories, she said, well, what happens if the narrator gets closer to the people on the bench? What if she goes and sits right next to that person? And that created the ending to a story that was entirely fictionalized. So it's very, very fluid. And I'm very happy to be that fluid. I'm very happy to be that fluid. Are you giving us the sign? Okay, cool. Okay, okay.
So, Cara, I was thinking it might be time to open to the floor. Is that appropriate? And do I want people to talk in the microphone? I failed to ask you. Perfect. Okay. Are there questions in the house?
I'm just wondering how the structure of the book developed. I've read that it's linked short stories, and did you write toward that, or did you just write, stories that were in the same place and put them together later?
So nice. Thank you. Oh, no, you go ahead. Yeah.
I'll do my best. Okay, so the question is about the structure, the overall structure of the book, that it's linked short stories. Did you start out with that as a plan, or did you link them later? And how did you work?
I wish I could say I had a plan. I wish I could start each day saying, I have a plan. But I had no plan. So a Croatian phrase is malo po malo. Malo po malo, little by little. My grandmother, go out and dig in the dirt. You're depressed, malo po malo, little by little, things will be better. So malo po malo is that over time, I didn't think this would be a book. I didn't, I would be happy if I wrote and finished a story. I'm going to be honest with you. I know there are writers here who know how to write books, and just they have a plan, they have an outline, they're going to do it. This was just I'm going to tell a story, I'm going to write another story. Well, I just met Tommy Bench. I think I'll write that story. There's a guy who says, this is who I used to be. You're not getting it. I used to be somebody. Here's the story. So putting it together, Jack Shoemaker of Counterpoint Press very much helped me. But it was it does end up that the person is fleeing a life that she doesn't feel totally comfortable. And slowly over time, those stories start to link up because she's getting closer and closer and closer to these people. And so it does follow a narrative arc, but it was, I think, I love those people who I'm going to write out the plot out loud and the chapters. I mean, really? Some of you are in here, I know that.
Any other questions in the house? Rochelle.
Can I ask a follow-up question? When did you know? So from story, little by little to like, oh, what was the moment where you realized it could be one book?
Okay, I'm going to be sadly very honest. I submitted this to various different contests, and it would always be a bridesmaid. And then I would add another story. And then I'd add another story. I just kept adding the story. So I didn't know until someone took it. Thank goodness. Hooray for them. That's right. It was a chance. And I have to be honest, also at the very end of having submitted it many places, I thought this is never going to fly. So that's a cliche.
Yes.
This is never going to fly, so let's just call it a day. Stop it. Stop it. Oh, this is really upsetting.
Other questions in the room? Sarah?
Okay, I have a comment and then a question.
Okay, comment, then
Comment
question.
is that it occurs to me that when there was this discussion of, oh, I'm retired, and I'm not in service anymore, potentially. But then I was thinking about the man in the story and how there are these people that might be without utility or what are they doing all day? But yet that person is really meaningful. So I feel like we can't, assign value to ourselves based on the work that we're supposed to be doing. You never know what you're going to need to a person who by chance encounters no person, but that's my comment. Question related to the genre question. I wonder how you relate to the term autofiction, and I wonder if this question of, or the decision to have it be fiction and not the deep end of the creative nonfiction pool is an ethical question or an ethical decision because it involves these characters and speaking of them and not just speculating about something that's not as intimate or personal. I don't know if that makes sense.
Nice.
Okay. I'm afraid I won't do full credit to your comment, which was compelling just about how you may feel as if you're no longer serving others outside of yourself, but you don't know how they are experiencing you in your presence. And so you shouldn't discount your being in the world. And the question, it's sort of a two-part question, which has to do with, first of all, if Toni has opinions about the term autofiction, and then in this dance between fiction and creative nonfiction is part of the decision to make it fictional, name it fiction, ethical, to kind of protect the identities, feelings, stories of people who are real people, but have been adjusted for these stories. Did I get that? Okay.
Autofiction, good term. Okay, so. No, I think that's an interesting term, and I've been, here, let me pull up my Jamaica Kincaid interview quote where Jamaica Kincaid says, because I think it was her book, like the autobiography of somebody or something, and it sounded very, very much like her own marriage, and she says, it's fiction if I say it's fiction. So I'm not Jamaica Kincaid, but I think that's pretty good. I think that in terms of, I'm going back to the classroom because there's some people in here who were in my classes. And I used to say to people, it's your ethical decision. It's an ethical decision, whether you call it fiction or whether you call it creative nonfiction. And that every person has to come up with that, what they feel comfortable with that. Often people would say, if I write about my mother, I don't know if I can write about my mother. And I'd say, you're going to have to puzzle that one out, aren't you? Because I can't answer that for you. I think I very much, a number of these characters are based on very real people who I've met and then again fictionalized. And I hope I've done them justice. And yet it would hurt my heart if I hadn't, and if I haven't. And so I think that's the true thing. It's fictionalized to the degree that I could, but it's also for the people, some of the people in here from Pacifica, they probably recognize a few of these people, or they might recognize the narrator.
Ralph.
Hi, I'm curious a little bit about the main character's discomfort in academia and then comfort outside of academia with people that she seemingly doesn't know that well. What's up with that?
Okay. So the question is, what's up with this narrator who's not comfortable in academia and yet is comfortable with these characters encountered whom she doesn't know that well?
I could almost refer this question to you and that person you met in line the other day, but I won't. Okay, so hold on just a minute. I think that, again, I was raised in a family and a culture and a community where people were not educated. And I mean educated, going to school. Academia is a strange world. Anyone who works in it, I'm looking at some people, know how strange that can be. There's status and steps and power and politics. And I just felt really uncomfortable in it, I have to tell you. Again, in the classroom, we could have a big time. Because in the classroom, you can, no one, that's the great thing about the classroom. You know, some right wing is going to get a hold of this and you know, like, one going to have like cameras in all the classrooms. No. But what happens is that you can, in the classroom, you can have relationships with people and toss things out and have things come back and have these almost felt like magical conversations that were so fabulous. And it could come out organically and ideas would switch around and it was so fun. Then you go to a faculty meeting. I'm not going to say anything. I didn't feel comfortable.
I'd like to add,
Oh,
we had a phone conversation about this. And I said, but Toni, people, I don't think I know anyone who went into teaching because they were dying to go to faculty meetings. I mean, it's just like not the ambition. One sets out with.
That's true. But you know, I do think too that I've any job you have, and this is outside of academia, any job you have, haven't you always had issues in your work world? I mean, swear to God. I mean, swear to God. When I was a truck driver at the blood bank up here on Masonic, I mean, really. So I think that the thing that I was surprised at is that when you had reached academia, it was like, oh, it's just a lovely environment. We're all having a good time. We're just chatting about ideas. There you go. It's a work world. Who's boss? Who's not boss? Who's coming up? All of that stuff.
Question. Am I right that you wanted to, oh, I'm sorry.
What are you working on now?
What are you working on now?
You know, I've been working, how should I say this? I wouldn't say working on it. For many, many years, it's nonfiction. And that is that I grew up with with a family, with a fishing boat. When my father died young, the boat went away for 30 years. And then over time it sunk in various places. And it's the story of what you think can buoy you over time. Like say you get ill, or say there's a death in the family, or say something happens. Like a boat is a symbol of something that literally that buoys you over rough seas, but what is it that buoys you when you go through a life and you have these ups and downs? So that's, I haven't gotten, but I mean, I've got all kinds of writing. It's like all stacked up. Maybe somebody needs to like put it together and, and like get it together and go out that road. Okay.
Am I right that you wanted to like read a tiny
I think
closing?
where
What
we
was your thought?
really, are you cool? It's just tiny, tiny, tiny.
Okay.
One tiny finale, okay? And this is, it's about luck. It's about luck. It's just a short piece. So maybe today the luck won't be with you or with the others. Maybe there are no fish in the sea left to catch. Maybe the waters are overfished by the weekenders who come out with their crab pots and hopes, by the true crabbers who make a living at it. But it ain't living these days, as an old salt. The crabs, smaller and smaller, microscopic, can slip easily inside the trap, snatch the bait, the old chicken pieces, the squid, then slip out again, and no one's the wiser. If there are tiny crabs that get away, or we're down to no crabs and no men on the sea, if there are no floats, for the floats are tied to the traps, are tied to the nets, are tied to the men who are tied to the sea. If no floats are unloosed, as a tongue is unloosed after a drink, as a thought is unloosed, and no rough water or rogue wave comes along to knock that thought sideways, how will we ever know? But like a float, we can ride it out. This ill fortune, this good fortune, life's slings and arrows, that we can ride it out. Walking down the pier, I see an empty bucket after empty bucket. Notice there's not one bent pole trembling from a tug on the line. Nothing's biting. I pass a guy leaning against the railing, having a smoke, sleepy-eyed, down in the mouth, with nothing to show for the morning's efforts. Hey there, I say, good luck today. He gives me a go to hell look, then goes back to his smoke. I don't know, but right then I decide to tell everyone out there with their crab nets dangling and their shopping carts full of bait, with their coffee cups draining and their boom boxes blasting, good luck, as if that will make a difference, as if saying those words into the air will confer luck, just saying those two words, one after another, to every person, group, couple, family, extended or not, traditional or loosely configured. Again and again I say it. Good luck, good luck. Let today be a good one. Maybe those out here are wishing for something more, to leave behind yesterday's trials or old hurts, the bitter work battle, the fight with the crummy neighbor over the overgrown hedge. Maybe they too want better times for themselves and for their loved ones. Are they hoping, as I am now hoping, that if we say it enough, if we repeat and repeat and repeat those words, if we say them with sincerity and conviction and an open heart, something might be different this time out. Oh, let it be different. We are all out together. We are walking on the pier on this day, and strife and acrimony and unhappiness are being beaten back for the day, as the fog is beaten back, as time is beaten back, as doubt and fear and disbelief are beaten back. It doesn't cost anything to wish somebody good luck. It doesn't take a pound of flesh or require belief or become a question of whether or not this will do the unlucky any good. Don't I want that for myself? Some luck, some uptick of good fortune, to tug on the line, a tug on the heart.
Thank you. We have one more hand for Toni Mirosevich. I'll be very brief and say how appreciative I am of both of these people for joining us and for all of you in person and online. Toni is going to be signing copies of the book right where this vase of flowers is at the back desk. If you don't know where to go, I will gladly tell you. And copies are available at the front. Grab them there. Come on back. And thank you so much. We will see you next time.
And thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.